I think we've just clicked over to 10 o'clock. I was just waiting till we get 10 o'clock because we obviously have a live stream today, so I didn't want to start early for those people who were logging on from home or their office or wherever they are today. So hello up there. If everybody is watching from home, maybe we could turn around and give them a nice little wave. Oh, that'd be nice for everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Very well-behaved audience so far. Thank you. All sitting down without me even telling you to. Appreciate that a lot. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the launch of Epilepsy Smart Australia. My name is Rebecca Maddern, and I am absolutely delighted and, to be honest, very honoured to be the MC today on what is a really, really important day. Just before we get started, because we are doing a live stream and we do have some very important guests today, just a little reminder about your mobile phone. If it's on silent, everyone panics. Now I'm panicking that I haven't got mine on silent. That's over there. I think it's okay. And just if you need the bathrooms today, they are a little bit hard to find. You have to go through back of house. You can see how all the guys are working back there, and the bathroom's just through that alcove there. I'd like to start this morning by making a special acknowledgement of some of our guests today. Dr. Monique Ryan, MP, the member for Kooyong, a very warm welcome to you. Our members of the boards and CEO of the Epilepsy Service Delivery Partners, including the Epilepsy Foundation Victoria, New South Wales, Epilepsy Queensland, Epilepsy Western Australia, Epilepsy Tasmania, Epilepsy ACT, and the Epilepsy Centre South Australia and the Northern Territory. Alex Kerr representing the Wurundjeri people today, Barry Winmar representing underserviced communities, our national spokespeople for Epilepsy Smart Australia, Graham Shears, CEO of the Epilepsy Foundation, Professor Sam Berkovic, AC, and Dr. Annette Rome, and Lisa Beck and her daughter Ava, who we'll be hearing from a little bit later on. I also welcome, as I said earlier, to those presenting today and also those viewing on the live stream. Today is a very proud new day for the future of epilepsy in Australia, and we would like to start by introducing Alex Kerr for the Welcome to Country. Oh, Alex is not here. I wish now I had the Welcome to Country off the top of my head, but I won't attempt it because I will probably muck. Oh, would you like to do the Welcome to Country for me? Barry, thank you very much. Please take it away. This is Barry Winmar, ladies and gentlemen.
First of all, it's an honour and privilege to be here today on Wurundjeri country. I'm a visitor here today from Kooyong country, which is right across the other side of this beautiful country that we all live in. And I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nations, and also would like to acknowledge their continuing connection, culture, and the contribution that they have to this beautiful city of Melbourne and the wider region of Victoria. And it's also a sign of mutual respect to also acknowledge First Nations peoples. And as we're here for this launch today, it's also a reminder that as we are all Australians, we want to ensure that no one's left in our communities left behind, especially those that are caring for and looking after those that are suffering with epilepsy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barry, for coming to the rescue. Thank you. Well, a few of you in the room that don't know me might be curious as to why I'm an epilepsy ambassador and also the MC today. I don't have epilepsy, but I do have a few girlfriends that do. Well, certainly growing up, I certainly did. So we had a couple of classmates that had epilepsy, diagnosed with epilepsy when I was at school, probably about 14, 15 years of age. I had one girl in our year and one girl actually in the year above us. So yeah, it was quite confronting. I went to a girls' school for a group of girls to witness, a seizure for the first time. But strangely, we really got around our friends and really helped. And even though it was a distraction at the start, it just became actually something that was quite normal to us. And I know that seems bizarre to say, but we would know what to do. We helped our girlfriends. We got a teacher. We were nothing official at this stage, like we're going to hear from today in the launch of the program. But our school was very accepting and very aware of the situation, and we all learnt very quickly how to best help our friends. So I have been around people with epilepsy growing up, and I think it's always been an issue that people don't really understand fully what epilepsy sufferers go through. I think it is very misunderstood, and that's first and foremost why I wanted to come on board the Epilepsy Foundation as an ambassador and also be part of today, because I think it is very, very important. It now gives me great pleasure to welcome a man who is leading the collaborative partnership that is known as Epilepsy Smart Australia. He is also the CEO of the Epilepsy Foundation for Victoria and New South Wales. Please give him a very warm welcome, Mr. Graham Shears.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, and thanks, Barry, for stepping in with the Welcome to Country. Really appreciate that. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we all meet. We have an equal number of people online around Australia today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I don't have epilepsy. I haven't had a seizure or felt its effects on my brain or my body. I haven't experienced the shock of receiving a diagnosis of epilepsy and not knowing what it means. As a parent, I haven't heard the words, "Your child has epilepsy." I don't know how that feels. I haven't faced the uncertainty of wondering if my child will get a good education, be included in social activities, have their work ambitions met, or have their own family. But I'm in a room full of people here, and at least as many people online who have felt that worry and who have experienced that anxiety many, many times. And I know what you told us, that access to the right information together with inclusive support is a game changer for you, and that you want a place to turn to when you hear the diagnosis is epilepsy for the first time, and every time on your journey that you need support to manage your epilepsy. Over 5 years ago, the idea for an ambitious program like Epilepsy Smart Australia was imagined. We knew that a majority of people living with epilepsy weren't getting the information that was available or the support that they needed to manage their or their loved one's epilepsy. This was especially true for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, culturally diverse communities, and those people living in rural or remote areas. We wanted the experience of people living with epilepsy to be better, much better. Our vision 5 years ago was that no one in Australia should have to go it alone with their epilepsy. Fulfilling that ambition, drawing on the diverse experiences of people living with epilepsy, has brought us to today. I'd like to introduce you to Anthea and Ben Reuter, James Bryden, Joseph Daly, Aria Jani, Pat Lightfoot, Professor Patrick Kwan, Scarlett Page, Maurice Sheehan, Jacob Marsilio, Annabelle Goffredo, plus Lisa and Ava Beck, Professor Sam Berkovic and Dr Annette Rome, who all feature in the video that we are about to see. Their lives speak to the heart of this work and articulate the case for why Australia needs the Epilepsy Smart Australia program, in a way that my words can never do justice. I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for sharing your experiences so generously.
Every 33 minutes, an Australian is diagnosed with epilepsy. Your son, your partner, a neighbour, the boss at work, the child in the classroom. Any one of them could have epilepsy without you knowing. Epilepsy can happen to anybody at any stage of life. It can present in multiple ways. And with more than 60 types of epilepsy, everyone's experience with seizures is different. But as common as it is, the world of epilepsy resides behind a wall of misinformation and confusion. People living with epilepsy face public ridicule, education and employment challenges, and are even sometimes ignored when medical assistance is required. even though it's so widespread, there's been no coordinated system to support people living with epilepsy. This has made it harder not just for those directly affected, but also for those who work with, teach, or care for people with this complex condition. Enabling a person with epilepsy to complete their studies, establish a social circle, hold down a job and have a family means coming together for an entirely new approach. A new program, Epilepsy Smart Australia, is designed to overcome the problems of the past. Epilepsy Smart manages all sides of epilepsy, working with doctors, teachers, organisations and ordinary Australians to provide wider education, smarter support and clearer understanding. For the first time ever, expert advice, resources and advocacy are together under one roof, delivering the same high-quality service and support right across Australia. This is a big system change. We are changing the world of epilepsy. It will no longer be disjointed for those living with this condition, their families, and even for medical professionals.
I think Epilepsy Smart will be a very important innovation. We'll now be able to tell people with epilepsy and their families about resources that are consistent across Australia, whether they live in the city or whether they live in rural or regional Australia. It'll be of consistently high quality, and we as doctors can be confident that the information is accurate and enable the doctor to optimise the outcome.
Organisations that complete Epilepsy Smart training will be able to cater to a more diverse set of needs and ensure that everyone under their care is safe from harm and discrimination.
I believe most organisations want to be caring organisations, and caring is about knowing and understanding the needs of your people, and if they have epilepsy, that's one of those needs.
And crucially, Epilepsy Smart makes it easy for people living with epilepsy to find and access the support they need.
I think as the Epilepsy Smart program develops, people with epilepsy are going to become a lot more confident and safe, and they're going to want to go out to more places. They're going to want to be working a lot and going to school.
People are not going to feel so alone, so that people living with epilepsy and their family and their carers are going to feel much more supported.
The more we bring epilepsy into the open and the more we work together, the better the support we can give to those living with epilepsy to help them get the most out of life, all their life. Epilepsy Smart Australia, changing the world of epilepsy together.
So Epilepsy Queensland, ACT, Tasmania, South Australian Northern Territory, WA and the Epilepsy Foundation all recognise that by working together we can provide consistent nationwide information and support, whether people live in Queensland or Tasmania or move between the states. It'll transform how we provide psychosocial support for the 1 in 25 Australians who are living with epilepsy. This program wouldn't be possible without the collaboration that's occurred over the last 2 years, and I thank the boards, CEOs and staff of the organisations involved for their commitment to the program and for the hard work to bring it so successfully to fruition. Thank you all. We acknowledge that the Australian Government, through the Department of Health, has enabled this vision to become a reality with a $20 million grant over 4 years, and we thank them for their support and partnership with this program. For 1 million Australians, Epilepsy Smart Australia will be a one-stop shop, and people living in rural and remote areas will have access to support that was previously unavailable to them. And we're working with cultural consultants to ensure that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities have access to the support they need. And you'll hear more about this from Uncle Barry Winmar shortly. Support starts with a phone call or an email to the new National Epilepsy Support Service, and that'll give people advice and information on the spot. And people who will receive referrals to their local epilepsy service provider for ongoing complex support, such as epilepsy management plans or emergency medication management plans, for education and training, and for access to local events. And just to finish up, I'd like to acknowledge and thank the many people who brought their perspectives and expertise to the design of Epilepsy Smart Australia. It has been a real co-design process, and together we'll truly change the world for people living with epilepsy in Australia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Graham. I don't know what that noise is, but I can assure you it's not the end of the world. What is that noise? No idea. Trams above us? I don't know. Anyway, our next guest, it's making things interesting, isn't it? Our next special guest speaker today studied medicine right here at the University of Melbourne before specialising as a paediatric neurologist in Melbourne, Sydney and the highly respected Boston Children's Hospital. She was Director of Neurology at the nearby Royal Children's Hospital for 8 years. Then at the last election decided on a massive career change and won the seat of Kooyong at the federal election. She now also serves on the Parliamentary Joint Standing Committee on Health, Aged Care and Sport, and also the Joint Standing Committee for the National Disability Insurance Scheme. It gives me great pleasure. Give her a warm welcome, please, Dr. Monique Ryan.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Graham, and thank you all for having me here today. It's a great pleasure to represent the federal government at the launch of what is an incredibly important scheme. Firstly, let me too also acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. This land was never ceded to us, and we're here at the pleasure of the traditional owners, and very grateful for that. Epilepsy is a cause which is really close to my own heart. Firstly, obviously, because I am the member for Kooyong, and the Epilepsy Foundation of Victoria is based in Kooyong. Also because I'm a neurologist and I've treated many, many children with epilepsy during my professional career. Professor Berkovic here was one of my lecturers when I was a medical student and put me on that path to becoming a neurologist for children, and it was always a great honour and a privilege to manage children with this condition. I actually had febrile seizures as a child and well remember having relantic seizures as an adolescent, although I wasn't actually diagnosed or treated appropriately at the time. So I do have some personal experience of the system as well. But also, one of the reasons I went into federal politics in the last 12 months was my frustration with our medical system. We have some of the best doctors in the world. We have a fantastic medical system. Our hospitals are outstanding. Our primary health care professionals are also world class. But one of the issues that we've always experienced in this country is, I think the federal-state divide is very difficult. It's very challenging, not just for medical care, but also for aged care and disability care. It's one of the things I'm hoping to work on in the next few years. But also the divide in the quality of care that people receive in rural settings as opposed to metropolitan settings is unacceptable in this country. It's a wealthy country with fantastic resources, and what we do need to do is to even up the quality of care that people receive, and so that everyone has access to the very best quality care no matter where they live. That is one of the things that this program will achieve. The disparity of the quality of care and the advice that people receive in different states and territories is unacceptable. The disparity of the quality of care that people from First Nations and culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds receive is unacceptable. And this program is one of the sorts of things that we need to roll out for lots of different conditions and medical and disability focused to even up things for all Australians. And so I'm incredibly, really happy. I can't take any credit for this. It all happened well before I came to politics, but it's exactly the sort of thing that I hope to support down the track. It'll be really exciting to see it rolled out across Australia. I really hope that it will provide a model for other sorts of conditions and that we can use this to advocate for similar sorts of advances in medical care and support for people with other medical conditions as well. And so it's a great pleasure to be here. It's a privilege to be part of the process, and I thank you for having me.
Dr. Monique Ryan, thank you so much for attending today, a politician making perfect sense. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, did you know our First Nations people are 3.5 times more likely to be hospitalised with epilepsy than non-Indigenous Australians? Our next speaker is here to talk about that and the Underserviced Communities Project. Please welcome for the second time today, Barry Winmar.
Well, once again, thank you very much. As I said, it's an honour and privilege to be here today and in person. I've been conducting a lot of the interaction via Zoom and over telephone. Look, it's the Epilepsy Foundation has been a service that has been underutilised in Aboriginal communities for a long, long time. And we don't need to go over the stats too much to say that some of the equity of health service delivery across Australia is in dire circumstances for a lot of my brothers and sisters in regional remote communities. So Epilepsy Smart Australia program, with its underserviced community project element, has brought myself and Leroy Wilkinson-Marr into the program to help to support and give some cultural capability for staff which are working in the front line and dealing with people that suffer with epilepsy every day. So we've got an element of the service where we've got passionate people that want to make a difference. But we also want to ensure that there's opportunities for the underserviced element, in particular the First Nations peoples of Australia, to ensure that engagement is respectful and there's an opportunity to elicit some information around some of the comorbidity issues that are being dealt with in communities. For instance, as we've alluded to before, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are twice as likely to have epilepsy than non-Indigenous Australians. Twice as much. But what we do know anecdotally is that presentations and hospitalisations are almost double that. So we need to look at how do we connect the passion of our workers, frontline workers in epilepsy, and how do we connect to the community, the underserviced element of Australians which are suffering in silence. It's about having the conversations around eliciting and getting involved in conversations to ask some of those questions and ensure that when we're dealing with Aboriginal health professionals, we've got a relationship there, because they're dealing with First Nations peoples every day. One of the things for me to be involved in this program, when I got asked to be involved, I did not hesitate. Because as was discussed earlier by Rebecca, having family members and loved ones that have epilepsy and managing it, or we thought we were managing it, as a family unit and as a community, that we were doing the right thing. Having Epilepsy Australia, having a program with the ESAP program in the underserviced community element, is a perfect opportunity to educate the Aboriginal community about the importance of seeking medical advice. It's also an opportunity for us to discuss with Aboriginal health workers to ensure when medical plans are drawn up, as in the case of 715s for just checkups, just ask general questions about their health and well-being, that epilepsy becomes a part of a conversation. And we're going into that next phase. Up to this point in time, we've been working closely with you and your colleagues about how we can engage with the community on that front. The next stage, which we're going to be rolling out very shortly, is engaging with the Aboriginal community workers and health workers to build that relationship with our workers in epilepsy, so that they're a tool or a resource that they've got in their back pocket that as soon as there's a conversation around epilepsy, or as commonly used in Aboriginal communities, family members that have fits, and what does that mean? That there's an opportunity to have further conversation to say, I think there may be an opportunity to get some professional support and some help around that. And when we look at what those programs are around, it's been an honour and privilege to work with the Epilepsy Foundation thus far, because there are a lot of good people doing a lot of good work. And how do we, myself and Leroy, come in and leverage on that to be able to translate that into positive engagement from the Aboriginal community with Epilepsy Foundation? And this is a perfect vehicle for it. And now's the time for us to be able to have those conversations and get it rolling so that we can look at running a series of pilots over the next 12 months at some sites where we can gather some data, because we know anecdotally the numbers don't actually truly reflect some of the conditions in our communities. We see that every day with our Aboriginal health professionals. So how do we then equip them with the tools and the resources around what that looks like moving forward? It's about leveraging the relationships, opening up the conversations, and getting people who care and look after and love sufferers with epilepsy to make sure that they have access to the best available care that is world class. So it's an honour and privilege to be involved, and I'm very pleased to be here in person to be able to give you a bit of an update on where we're at, and hopefully looking forward to the challenges over the next 12 months. And it's not going to be easy. I've been doing this for about 25 years. But if you've got passion, if you care for people, and you've got persistence, hopefully the numbers come through and we can make an improvement on everybody's lives who look after and care for those that suffer with epilepsy. Thank you.
Just terrific. Thank you so much, Barry. Really appreciate that. Obviously, the impact of epilepsy touches every aspect of the lives who live with it, and there are also a staggering economic cost for those currently living with the condition today, a massive $12.3 billion. Now, that is one of the reasons that Epilepsy Smart Australia is working closely with NDIS to help Australians get their financial support they need to live the best lives they can with epilepsy. And so, we shall now play a video, fingers crossed, message from the Minister for the National Insurance Disability Scheme, the Honourable Bill Shorten.
I know that for some people with epilepsy, life can be tough, especially the lack of understanding. One of the world's most common brain disorders can be isolating when you deal with people who don't understand what it means. So I'm really thrilled that the Epilepsy Smart Australia program is here to give people with epilepsy, or those who want to learn more about epilepsy, a single point of contact for high quality, trusted and consistent material. I think that the beauty of this program is its availability to everyone, regardless of your age, your postcode or your cultural background. The Epilepsy Smart Australia program will not only help the person living with epilepsy, but the people who love them, their families, their carers, their doctors, their workmates, or their teachers. It can be so tiring having to explain your condition. So this is a brilliant collaborative effort between state-based organisations that are proudly supported by the Commonwealth Government of Australia. It is going to help take the mystery out of epilepsy. It will be a trusted source of information. I believe it will raise awareness, improve awareness, and crucially, dispel myths. Most importantly though, it can change and empower the lives of 250,000 Australians living with this chronic disorder. I congratulate everyone involved in Epilepsy Smart Australia. Thank you for what you are doing to help people.
There we have Bill. Thank you very much. Give him a round of applause. Next, we are very lucky. We're going to have some very brave guests sharing their stories with us and some experts as well. I'd like to please welcome to Epilepsy Smart Australia ambassadors, Ava and Lisa Beck, if they could come and take their in the hot seat, as we like to say. Only kidding, it's not scary at all. And Dr. Annette Rome and Professor Sam Berkovic AC is going to join you all on our panel today. I hope you're all mic'd up and ready to go, guys. Thank you so much for being with us today. Lisa, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
You're good. Hopefully your microphone's on. Is your microphone on? Can you say a few words?
You all hear me?
Yep, great. Lisa, welcome to you today. You are, congratulations, mother of 3 teenagers. Wow. Including Ava, gorgeous Ava, who's sitting beside you. And Ava is here today because she has epilepsy. Would you share your story with us, please, Lisa?
Thanks, Rebecca. Well, our family feels really privileged to be invited here today at the launch of Epilepsy Smart Australia. And I hope that in my role as a national spokesperson, as a parent of a teenager living with epilepsy, and through sharing some of our experiences, I can highlight how very needed this new national health program is. Our story is not special, and it's certainly not uncommon, and I believe it will resonate with many families that have a child that has a child with epilepsy, and for those living with epilepsy themselves. Our 16-year-old daughter Ava was told that she had epilepsy in 2016 when she was 9. And until that time, our life was typical of many families. We had 3 healthy kids, and the biggest stress in our lives was struggling to juggle with family and work commitments. And then one night, completely out of the blue, was after a basketball training session, Ava had a seizure. At the time, we didn't even know it was a seizure, and I'm a nurse. We will never forget that moment. We were told at the time that this very unusual episode, as I said, we didn't know it was a seizure, was probably a once-off, and it will probably not happen again. And even if it was a seizure, most children grow out of epilepsy, and that's what we were told repeatedly. But it didn't just happen that once, it happened again, and it went on to happen many times. She had 10 seizures in that very first week, and probably hundreds, if not thousands, from then on. And we wouldn't really know how many seizures Ava was having because they don't always present as convulsive seizures, and it makes it hard to know when they're actually happening. They present in many very different ways. She's got a very complex form of epilepsy. So those first few months, life just seemed to stand still for us while life carried on as normal for everyone else around us. We couldn't plan anything. There was uncertainty about why Ava was having seizures. Then why wasn't the medication working? And then managing the debilitating side effects of the many anti-seizure medications that she was first trialled. These were really challenging and terribly hard days where epilepsy left her feeling defeated. And those days she would face quietly, on her own at home, with just her family really seeing and understanding the reality of living life with epilepsy, which is probably one reason why I think epilepsy is such an invisible condition. Ava is often asked what happens when she has a seizure, and that becomes really tiring to explain when you have an invisible condition. Ava's seizures were causing her to feel like she was choking and that she couldn't breathe. And so often she was so nauseous that she just couldn't get out of bed. She couldn't even move her head. She was so nauseous, let alone want to eat. She was so fatigued that she just stopped going to school. She had to stop dancing, which she loved, and she couldn't play basketball as much as she hoped. She just really couldn't do the everyday things that other children could do. So the sleepovers stopped, the parties, school excursions, and definitely no school camps. Because nobody was trained in seizure management, nobody was certainly able to give the anti-seizure emergency medication that she was prescribed. And if seizures were prolonged, that medication was vital to be given. The medication side effects were just too many to mention, and seeing the result of the significant weight loss and then a general overall health breakdown that still has lasting effects. Ava also was starting to be really fearful and had anxiety about going to sleep because that's when most of her seizures would happen. So not only were the seizures causing her to wake up multiple times every single night, that vicious cycle of sleep deprivation then triggered more seizures. So she missed so much school, and even if she was at school, she was so exhausted from those seizures that it was hard to concentrate, and that makes learning so challenging for children living with epilepsy that's not able to be managed with medication. So to live with uncontrolled epilepsy is to live a life in a constant state of heightened anxiety and unpredictability. That is the nature of epilepsy and the reality of so many people living with it. Our lifestyle in 2016 changed dramatically. We used to enjoy a lot of travel, and we used to travel remotely around Australia. Those travel plans had to change. Not only because she was feeling so unwell most of the time, but also we had to learn to avoid triggers, and heat being one of those definite triggers. We had to change our lifestyle completely. We were calling ambulances so many times, often several times per week, that even her older brother Connor and her younger sister Abby knew exactly what to do. It kind of became a routine and a way of managing something that was completely out of our control. Connor's job was to unlock the front door, turn the front light on, to let the paramedics in, put the dog outside. Abby's job was to pack the teddy bears and the pyjamas into the bag because they knew that Ava was going to hospital. And I have no doubt that Connor's experiences back then will give him an empathy that can't be learnt as he now studies to be a paramedic. That first year, we bounced around hospitals. We were sent to emergency departments. We waited more than a year to see a neurologist, and interestingly, talking about the gaps in access, here's our family who live in Melbourne and should really have access to the best healthcare. And Ava's, both parents being health professionals, we still couldn't get access. So we decided that being in emergency departments on a Saturday night where paediatrics are mixed in with adults was not an ideal situation for a child. So we decided that we had to become expert at managing the prolonged seizures ourselves at home. So with the support of Ava's paediatrician at the time, and then her wonderful neurologist at the Royal Children's Hospital, and the Epilepsy Foundation nurses, we developed an excellent seizure management plan and emergency medication plan. We became really tired of the general lack of knowledge and even ignorance and discrimination from people around us when we do talk about epilepsy. And that often comes as well from health professionals, unfortunately. Some of the comments were, is this even a seizure? And these from doctors in emergency departments. Maybe it's hysteria. Some girls become a bit hysterical. Or the nausea being, I don't do nausea, refer her to a gastroenterologist. So these things happen to us, and we're health professionals. So we didn't want others to know the details about Ava's personal circumstances. Back then, only our close family and friends really knew our situation on a daily basis, and why we were always cancelling plans, because that's what you do when you've got a child with epilepsy. You just can't plan ahead. So we had code words because we just were sick of explaining it, and the code word was, we're not coming because Ava's having a bad day, or she's had a bad night. What we really needed back then was information. I think the more that we could understand then in that first year, the better that we could advocate for Ava. We didn't know back then naively that we would have to advocate. The turning point for us, certainly for Ava, was our very first visit to the Royal Children's Hospital, but it did take more than a year to get an appointment with a neurologist. This amazing doctor who specialises in epilepsy immediately changed her medications, and he started the process of comprehensive testing to see why at that point, 8 or 9 medications hadn't worked. This led to a better understanding of her complex epilepsy and trying new medications for a better result. And that would work for a few months and we would have great hope. But then again, after a few months, the seizures would return again. Fast forward a few years and Ava's seizures were getting more frequent. So after extensive testing and lots of discussion, a decision was made, including Ava in that decision that she would have epilepsy surgery. It was a 2-stage surgery, and this would be her best chance of gaining seizure freedom, or at the very least a reduction in seizures and a better quality of life. So in October last year, 2021, and in the peak of COVID restrictions and lockdowns, 3 postponed surgeries and a workup of almost 2 years, the first surgery happened, where she had insertion of depth electrodes and grids, followed by a week of testing to find out exactly where in her brain the seizures were happening. According to Ava, that was the very worst week of her life. The second surgery followed 7 days later, and it was, put simply, it was a lot. It was a big deal, and it was really hard. It was hard on Ava, and it was hard on her family, us, and it was hard on her siblings and her nana, who was looking after them at home. Ava was so brave through it all. And unfortunately, the surgery, it hasn't been able to stop all of Ava's seizures, but it has resulted in less seizures, and certainly taken away a lot of the really troubling symptoms that she had with some of those seizures. And the overall improvement to the quality of her life has been immense. We're continuing to keep our minds open to new and emerging treatments, and maybe one day Ava will gain more independence and she might be able to get her driver's licence one day. Ava's always been surrounded by family and friends that have supported her in massive fundraising and awareness campaigns for the Epilepsy Foundation, and it showed me that people really do want to help. I think we've got thousands of people behind us wanting to help, but they don't know where to go to. And help, meaningful help for us, not just, awareness, Purple Days, things like that has been amazing, but really meaningful help. Ava's now absolutely thriving at school, academically, in sport, socially. She's even got 2 part-time jobs. She's been away from us for the first time since she was 9 years old. Recently, when she went on her first camp, an overnight camp, actually went for a week long, and she's about to go away again with school to Queensland to play basketball in the Australian School Championships in 2 weeks' time. These things just would never have been possible if her school hadn't had epilepsy management training to become an Epilepsy Smart school. Bringing epilepsy into the spotlight by promoting Epilepsy Smart Australia means support for people diagnosed with epilepsy and their families, as well as schools, workplaces and other organisations, has information available, that it's consistent, and it's all going to be in one centralised place. And this will make the pathway to navigate through life for people living with epilepsy just that bit easier.
Lisa. You need a drink?
Yeah.
It's vodka in that, by the way. Lisa, I don't know if you've actually ever done that or gone through the process of writing down that and delivered it to all of us if you haven't.
That's the last few days, that's all I've been working on.
Okay.
Trying to get 7 years and 7 very difficult years into 3 minutes was probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
Can I just ask this question without notice? How do you feel now that you've just had a room captive audience for 5 minutes listening to you, and it's at times was really heart-wrenching for us to hear. How do you feel now that you've actually just said that out loud to everybody?
As I said, I truly think I am privileged to have this opportunity. And when I was first asked, I thought, why us? Because there's plenty of people with epilepsy that has more of an impact on their lives than what it does on our family. And listening to Barry speak before and Dr. Monique Ryan talking about access to services, we live in Melbourne and we should have access to services. I can't imagine what it's like for people from called backgrounds and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families and people living remotely, how it feels for them. So I do feel privileged. I can't imagine what it's like for families that have got children that have got devastating forms of epilepsy.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. And I think one of the key messages out of hearing you today was the message that we've been hearing from every speaker, and what today is all about is that information is really power. Ava, hello. We've been speaking about you like you're not in the room, but you are obviously radiating in your beautiful blue suit today. Ava, I can imagine being diagnosed when you are 9 years of age. You're a mature, beautiful woman now, but when you're 9, you're still pretty young. It must have been very hard for you to understand, one, what was happening to you at that time, and then also going to doctors, listening to all of that when you're 9 years of age is really traumatic. Can you tell us about your experience?
Well, when I was 9, that's when I was diagnosed, but I didn't really understand it because I was 9. I didn't even know what epilepsy was. So I kind of didn't really have like an initial feeling. I was just kind of confused. And then as I got older and went to more doctors and more tests, that's when I started to get a little bit more scared because I found most of the tests pretty scary. But I've had my family and my friends around me ever since I was diagnosed, and they've helped me to make things less scary.
How do you feel, I mean, most of your life when you're growing up is at school with your friends. How did you feel going to school, firstly? And is it better for you? Some people don't like to share their experiences, but is it better for you, and do you feel more comfortable when people talk about it and fully understand what you have and what you go through?
Yeah. I haven't, a lot of my friends, all my friends know that I have epilepsy, but I haven't directly told them my whole story and all the symptoms and everything. But they're all really supportive, and my teachers especially after they've done the training, have been really supportive, and I feel comfortable going to school and telling them when I don't feel well, because I think in the past I used to always just message my mum and be like, can you pick me up? I was always too scared to tell any teachers. But as I've grown up and understood more, and all the teachers are trained, I feel a lot more comfortable at school.
Tell me what it was like going on your first camp.
Okay, I was really nervous to start off with because I honestly haven't had a sleepover since I was probably 9, since I first got diagnosed, and I was really scared. But I was also so excited because it was at the Whitsundays, and I was like, I would have never
I'd be excited too.
Yes, it was really good. But I was nervous on the first night, and then it was fine. And then after that, I enjoyed it the whole time.
Ah, beautiful. Dr. Rome, welcome to you today. You are school principal at St Margaret's Berwick Grammar Ava School, which is now, congratulations, an accredited Epilepsy Smart School. Why is it important for schools, and why do you think it's so important for schools across Australia to jump on board and become Epilepsy Smart Schools?
Look, I would like to start by acknowledging that I'm speaking Wurundjeri land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I think that the word honour and privilege words have been mentioned a lot, and I think you can see what an honour it is for me to work in a school that is associated with this beautiful family. It has been something that has affected all the staff and the other students, and I don't think there is a teacher in the school or an adult in the school who, after having seen Ava go on camp for the first time in a long time, complete her first set of full exams, I believe. Now, that could have been a minus rather than a plus, but she got to sit every single one of her exams, which I think is the first time in a while. Mm-hmm. And our staff need no convincing. And it was partly, I believe, because of the knowledge that Ava has shared with the group as to what epilepsy might be like, what she needs, which has been shown through the training to all the teachers and the other staff. So people can witness the empowerment and the enablement of a young person to really embrace life to the full. And once you see that, there's no turning back. So I absolutely commend Epilepsy Smart Australia, because I think it is a matter of equity, it's enablement, it's empowerment for whether it's a young person like Ava, an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander person. It really does make a difference, because it shows the teachers and the schools that, yes, we can do this together.
So practically, I'm just interested, what have you done and what changes have you had to make?
Well, there's been a number of elements. One is the information, so the sharing of the information about it. So when Ava at one stage stood up in assembly, she had the audience in the palm of her hands, and the teachers still talk about it many, many months later, as do the other students as well. In terms of the specific training though, yes, there's the EMP, the emergency management plans that staff need to be aware of, and the medication plans that sit alongside them. So it kind of demystified the whole thing, and by posing scenarios there was very much this what if then kind of training, so that should something happen, people knew what to do. And if you haven't seen that news report on Channel 7 that was broadcast on the weekend, there's a shot of Ava flying off the boat in the Whitsundays and dropping into the water. And to me, that just sort of captured the freedom that this training has given a young person like Ava.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Rome. Professor Berkovic, it's great to have you along with us today. Just a little bit of background. Professor Berkovic is a laureate professor at the University of Melbourne's Department of Medicine and director of the Epilepsy Research Centre at Austin Health. He is the Chief Medical Officer for Epilepsy Smart Australia and internationally recognised as a leader in epilepsy research. So I'm sorry we couldn't get someone more qualified for you today. Professor, how are you? Do you know, I'm going to just go off script for a second because I just want to ask you, hearing Ava and Lisa's story and the impact that epilepsy has on people's lives, does it reconfirm to you why you actually went into this field?
Indeed, it was a very powerful story, and thank you for sharing it, Lisa and Ava. And sadly, we hear this story again and again in various guises. And it's even harder for people from, underprivileged backgrounds who probably don't even get the chance to talk about it. And it's a real problem. And I think, the idea about Epilepsy Smart to Australia to get the information out there is really critical. As has already been said this morning, information is power. And there's a lot we don't know about epilepsy. There's a lot we still won't find out in the immediate future. But learning what we do know now and getting that into the minds of the families and the people around them, particularly schools and the workplace, is really critical.
Professor, how close are we to having a better understanding and therefore then treating epilepsy?
Look, that's a how long is a piece of string story. From my own experience, the way we think about epilepsy, the way we approach it medically, the therapies that we have are completely different now to when I began in the field, and they're going to continue to evolve. But sadly, there still is a very large proportion of people with epilepsy where treatment is inadequate, and we need more, and it's still really difficult.
Is there a silver bullet out there? Is there something that we need that is going to make a huge breakthrough, or is it just time and research and understanding?
Well, all that. Often one gets asked, when will there be a cure for anything? And here's a real tip, Rebecca. You'll hear many of my medical colleagues say, about 5 years. When you hear that, they've got no idea what they're talking about.
Great. I've actually, as a journalist, in many interviews had that said to me, so
exactly.
Thank you very much.
So
now I know they're all just lying to me.
we don't know, and research breakthroughs come in funny ways, sometimes very, very slowly, incrementally. Rarely there's a big sudden change, and we just don't know. We've just got to keep working at it. One positive thing that I think we should say to this audience, and we should be proud of, and that we don't often say, is that the Melbourne epilepsy research community is incredibly strong and probably the best in the world, and we don't sort of sing our own song enough. There's my group at the Austin, but there are many major Melbourne hospitals that are actually leaders, St Vincent's, the Royal Children's, the Alfred Group. We've got a number of institutes that are doing fantastic work at the Florey Institute. We've got spin-off companies. We've got Thea here, I can see Dean here, and there are others coming. So we actually are really moving the needle in Melbourne, and I hope that's helpful to people like Lisa and Ava to know things are happening, and exactly when something really dramatic is going to happen, or when there'll be such a long line of incremental change that we can say, well, gee, that's a real achievement. We don't know. Probably 5 years.
Funny. Good to see a Professor with a great sense of humour. Professor, we thank you so much for all your wonderful work. Dr. Annette Rome, we thank you for being an Epilepsy Smart School. Ava and Lisa, what can I say about you? Ava, thank you so much. You're such a brave, courageous young woman, and I really looking forward to following you and seeing what you do in the next couple of years. And also to Lisa today, thank you for being so courageous and brave and sharing your story for the very first time publicly. As a mum, I can't imagine what you go through on a daily basis. So thank you so much. Please give a huge round of applause to our panellists today. We were going to take some questions for the floor, but I think that all of our guests today have spoken so well, and we are just noticing running out of time a little bit, so I think I'll skip that part, to be honest, if that's okay, because they spoke so well. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for that. You can take your seats comfortably. Thank you. We do have one final guest speaker to wrap up this morning, and it is to officially launch Epilepsy Smart Australia. Please put your hands together for the Chairman of the Epilepsy Foundation, Mr. Joseph Azule.
Certainly not a guest amongst those who have just spoken today. It's hard to follow that up. But look, having been on the journey, this journey as a parent, and also with the Foundation for the past decade, today is truly a momentous milestone. Thank you all for coming and to this very important event, and to those who equal number on the live stream as well. Thank you all for joining us and tuning into today's proceedings. It is absolutely my great honour to take this opportunity to declare the Epilepsy Smart Australia program officially launched. I think we all deserve a round of applause for that. And if I just ask you to indulge me for another couple of moments, because there are a lot of people that I need to thank, not just for today, but in the years leading up to today's event. Firstly, thank you, Dr. Monique Ryan, MP, member of Kooyong, or for Kooyong I should say, for attending and endorsing this government-funded program. And also our special thanks to Bill Shorten, who had sent his apologies, but couldn't be with us today, but his very warm endorsement of the Epilepsy Smart Australia program is very important for us. And we also are hugely grateful for our partnership with the federal government and hope that that continues for a long time to come. I also want to thank Barry Winmar. 2 thank yous today. Thank you for attending and supporting this event, and also, moreover, for your and your colleagues, Leroy Wilkinson-Marr's work in guiding us through the Underserviced Communities project. This project is so important to the success of our program with Indigenous and Torres Strait Islanders, and ensuring that we reach those people who've previously had great difficulty in receiving and accessing those services. And in addition, thank you for honouring us with the welcome to country this morning, so thank you very much. I'd also want a special thanks to our speakers, Professor Sam Berkovic, AC, Dr. Annette Rome, and Lisa and Ava Beck, for sharing your most amazing stories, your endorsements, and hopefully that 5 years gets contracted, for all of us. A special thanks and a real heartfelt thanks to the members of the Epilepsy Smart Australia Executive and Subcommittee. Your work behind the scenes, the tireless hours, has been absolutely extraordinary. To the members of the boards and CEOs of our epilepsy service delivery partners, including our own foundation, the Epilepsy Queensland, Epilepsy Western Australia, Epilepsy Tasmania, Epilepsy ACT, and the Centre in South Australia and Northern Territory. These programs don't just happen overnight. They don't just happen, with one person. This has been a huge collaborative effort, and without your support, we wouldn't be here today, and we are truly thankful to make this a national program. A very warm thanks and an acknowledgement of all the hard work undertaken by Graham, our CEO. Graham, thank you. You and the staff and everyone involved in the ESA program office and our wider Epilepsy Foundation and our board, you've worked tirelessly over the last 2 years to bring this, or 2 or 3 years now, to bring this program to fruition. So a heartfelt thanks there. And finally, a special and grateful thanks to Rebecca for doing such a wonderful job today as our MC. You're an amazing ambassador for the Epilepsy Foundation and for the epilepsy cause at large. And I'd also like to thank you for your ongoing support and advocacy for the Foundation and especially for the Epilepsy Smart Australia program. So with that, thank you for indulging me with all those thank yous. It really is a true honour to be the chair of this wonderful organisation and to officially launch our Epilepsy Smart Australia program. So thank you all very much today.
Thank you so much, Joe. Just to echo a few of your closing remarks there, thank you very much for attending today, and thank you very much for those who have attended via the live stream. We do have some beautiful little morning tea over there, and before you do go over and enjoy a cup of tea, just a reminder that we'd like you to help share our event. There's all the details on the screen. If you like the Instagram or the YouTube or the hashtag something, whatever you like to do, please put it out there. As we said, knowledge is power, and it's great to share the word as well. And just in final closing today, I would like to play with you our 30-second Epilepsy Smart TV commercial that has been produced by our creative partners, the Shannon Company. Thanks everybody for attending today, and enjoy your morning tea. Thank you.
Every 33 minutes, someone like me is diagnosed with epilepsy.
So imagine a world where everyone understood this life-changing condition.
Where support, education and advocacy could be found in one easy place.
It couldn't be needed more.
At Epilepsy Smart Australia,
We're changing the world of epilepsy.
Together.
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 Search Epilepsy Smart Australia today.